Hello, this is Kim Nelson, and in this tutorial I'm going to go over how to bring an image file into Photoshop that was generated in a CAD modeling program, in this case Rhino 3D. Going to bring that file into Photoshop to further develop it in the Photoshop environment. In this case, to make a template to use a template for sketching on a dome ring project. So the first step is to create a new file. Okay. Generally want a 7.5 by 10. I like 7.5 by 10. Most inkjet printers can't print full page to scale. So they impose a 1/2 inch border all the way around, which means on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, the largest file you can print and keep things accurate size is 7.5 by 10. So there's the file. I am now going to bring in the document that I created in Rhino. And here we have it. Okay. I'm going to select the full contents from this page. I'm going to do that by doing a Control A and then a Control C. Control A, select all, Control C, copy. I'm going to use Alt Tab to move back and forth between documents, and this will bring me into my clean document where I will paste that image. Okay. It's actually going to be identical in this case because the original file I created in Rhino was also 7.5 by 10. But I want multi-layer information here, so I have it now. So I would like to create this template so that it has more items for me to work from. More templates, basically. So I'm going to copy, Control C to just copy this. And then I'm going to Control Shift V. That pastes in place, so it's directly on top. Going to change the composition method to multiply. And hit V, and then I can either drag it with my mouse, holding down the Shift key, or if I wanted to, I could also have used arrow keys, which I will use to get the final position. So that's what I wanted to achieve right there. Having that now, I don't want the full layer. I only want this center section. So I'm going to take it back to normal. And I can see what I do and do not want to keep. So using marquee selection, get rid of the things I know I definitely don't want. Control X. Control X. Control X. And I'm just clearing it out of the way. It is interesting that where these overlap the green, we are getting a loss of line. It's unimportant to the exercise in this video, but if you did this going through Illustrator as an in-between, which is what I prefer to do myself, I don't like forcing people to use an extra package of software just because I like it, but that is the way I would normally proceed. In Illustrator, you wouldn't get that, but that's okay. It's not going to cause us any real problems. I'm wondering to myself if I can fit one more of these down below. I believe I can. I'm going to hold the Shift key and click to select both layers. Turn on V, hit V for the transform, and I'm going to move that up a ways, like so. Now, I'm going to, the problem is, see, if I use the top one, I'm not going to have any useful information as far as orienting it properly with the rest. So what I am going to do instead is I am going to drag a selection window around the entire area of the canvas, Control A, and I'm going to do a Control Shift C. That will copy everything visible. And then Control Shift V, so it pastes back in the same place. Multiply again. Drag holding Shift key. And I'm hopeful, use the arrow keys to finesse, that if I line it up like so, this is the only piece I want to keep, the bottom center. So back to normal. Turn on my marquee selection, M, and delete or select and crop anything that isn't what I want on that layer. It's important to make sure I'm selecting the right layer, otherwise I could be sacrificing things I do not wish to sacrifice. It's careful when I'm selecting that I do not select things that I want to keep. In this case, I do want to keep the full width of the full span there. And that should give me what I want. So now I have cleaned it up a little bit. Perfect. So that's my template. That template gives me 7 chances to draw on one template. I'm going to click to select each one of these layers, so I have all of them now, and I will Control E to merge them. Okay, so now that is my template. And at this point, you have a completely finished template that you can use. Might move it down a little bit, center it a bit. That's fine. Might move it left and right a little bit. Yeah, that's just being picky at this point. So now the question becomes, what do I want to use it? How do I want to use it? Okay, I have a nice template here. My problem is I want to sketch. I want to see the template, but I don't want it to get in my way. Right? Always the problem with a template. I find the best thing to do, the easiest thing to do, not always the best, but usually the easiest, is to create a new layer. Control A to select the whole layer. G is the keyboard shortcut for Paint Bucket. Set it to white. And Paint Bucket Fill. And that acts as my tracing paper. And I can modify that to the level of transparency I want. If I wish to lock it, I can lock it so that I don't work on it accidentally. And add a fresh layer to draw on. And now that I have that, I can sketch. Start over here. Those of you who've watched me work before know that I hate working straight up and down. A nice gray. I never draw in black. I work in a gray so that it feels more like a pencil. This template is still reading too dark to me, so I'm going to unlock it for a minute. I like that better. And back to my drawing layer. So my sketching brush to keep things easy is just to use the soft pressure opacity and flow brush. 6 pixels is pretty good for sketching. All right, and then I start to sketch. Now I know that this is my ring bore. I know this is my stone and my bezel. Let's say I want to have a dome ring. That looks something like this. Okay, and then the shoulder thickness. I know this green line is 2 millimeters. I know that because I drew it in Rhino. 2 millimeters is fine. I could go a little heavier if I want. Okay, and then if I wanted to put some kind of detail on this, I could do like a kind of a soft sculptural effect. Finding that brush a little dark. Okay, fine. That's one. Now, already I've made a mistake because I drew it on my flat, my flat and top view. I drew it like it was a traditional top view, but I drew it in the wrong place in my template. That's fine. I'll just use the transform tool and move it down. This is a loose sketch, so at this point it really doesn't matter. So number 2, I'll come over here. Use the right part of the template this time. Let's say for this one I want to have the dome stay very close to the profile of the ring. Now, as you all know from our work together in the past, I can use a symmetry tool to make this really easy for me. I'm not going to, because I want to sketch. I don't want to get fussy with it. Okay? I'm also noticing that I'm finding myself really pinned to those lines I drew in Rhino. And those were arbitrary, right? I don't need to be pinned to that. So I'm going to try something a little fuller than those lines. But I do want it to stay pretty, follow pretty close to the ring. And then a shank. I will not bother to clean up. Detail, if I wanted to add detail to this. This is actually a fairly classic ring. I don't know if it needs detail, but if I were going to do detail, maybe a strip of stone. Fine. Moving on. So, number 3. This one I want to keep fairly close. Okay. And I want to have a concave shoulder. That's fine. And I would like some kind of detail that speaks to this shoulder. Maybe an accent stone. Those should probably be moved more to the center. Fine. I am not stopping to make these clean or tidy. There's no point. It's sketching. I will pick which ones I want to clean up further down the road. Okay? Let's say I have one where I actually want the bezel to break out of. Having these lines in the template help me to see, you know, I'm roughly this far away here, this far away here. Something like that. And then maybe this one has some kind of linear treatment on it. Maybe something plant-based, floral, who knows, right? Fine. Okay, so there's 4. There are 4 sketches, all right, that are clean enough for me to understand them. At this point, I would need to do an additional sketch. Remember, we're doing this to maquette in Rhino, so keep it simple. Something with a lot of detail is not going to matter because we're not going to keep the detail in the maquette, right? So I will pick one. I'll pick number 2. And now that I have picked number 2, now I will go to the trouble to make it clean. There's no reason not to. Kick that layer back in opacity. Put a fresh layer on top. And now I will use dual axis. Symmetry will work for this just fine. Even through the 2 transparent semi-opaque layers, I can see where that will go. Adjust it with my keyboard, my arrow keys if I want to. And then commence drawing. And for a cleaner approach, 6 pixels is a big brush. I'm going to go down to 3. Okay, and I'll take a look at that and decide if that's what I want. I don't think it is. I think this is a little too, it's a little too narrow. I like that better. Bring in my eraser, which is really a big eraser right now. And I want opacity 100% on that. Obviously, I was doing something more sensitive and huge with my eraser the last time I had it out. Okay, I like that fine. Now, if I wanted to take that onto the flat to see what I think of it, I can do that. That's fairly easy. A couple of ways I can go about it. Easiest one is to just pick my marquee selecting tool and grab this, Control C, Control Shift V, so it comes back in exactly the same place, right? And then center it up by eye, which isn't too hard to do. I can see the distances here and here. Obviously, if I want to keep drawing up there, I'm going to have to transform my Symmetry Tool. But that's all right. Use my arrow key to move that up. Left to right, it was the same. So back to my drawing tool. Because since most of this is right up on top of the finger, this shape isn't going to change much if I draw it out flat. But it'll probably change some. Did the straight line tool to give me a feel for what's going on there. And then that would be a little more gradual if it were flattened out. Okay, and so now I have a flattened top view and a top view. Nice. My front view starts to become more of a challenge now. What do I want to do with it? Anywhere that there is a bezel, you have to be mindful of what you're doing. The logical thing to do is to keep it flat in that area. That'll give you the most consistent bezel height, right? No, I have Symmetry doing too many things right now. It's going to cause all kinds of trouble. Hang on. In fact, I'm going to turn Symmetry off because I'm sketching again. In fact, I'm going to come back down here to my sketching layer. I'm going to go ahead and bring that back up a ways. So I can feel free to sketch down here. No symmetry. Just thinking about what I think this should look like. I see it doing a very gradual fall away. I don't mind having this much bezel here. That's okay. So this is one way I could do it. Sure. Another way I could do it, since I've drawn this band of stones, I could do that as well. For the ease of our life, and as far as me demonstrating on future things, I will take the easier, which is this side here. Maybe I do want a more gradual version of what I have over here on this side. Okay, fine. So, drop its opacity back down. Come back to my design layer. Reactivate my symmetry. This time I just want vertical. Position it down the middle. And get a sketching brush, that's a drawing brush that's reasonably sized. And rotate my canvas a little bit because I can't live with it otherwise. And you see I'm still feeling my way. Okay. Like that. Come in with my eraser now. Tidy that up. Okay, so that's fine. So I have this now. How do I turn it into, by the way, I don't have a side view and I did not leave anywhere in my template for a side view. I would recommend that when you make your template, maybe you make a place for a side view, or we can just draw one here with construction lines. That'll work too. But you will need a side view either in here or in Rhino. But for now, we'll stop at the top and front, at least in the context of this video. So how do I clean this up now that I've got it? Well, I don't want the sketch layer anymore. I'm going to turn it off. I'm going to make this a multiply layer. And I'm going to I'm going to turn off the tracing paper. So now everything's loud and kind of annoying. I don't like the black lines that come with a template, so I am going to drop the opacity of this substantially so that the black in the template feels more like my pencil lines. Right? And now that I've done that, I have two choices. I can ruin my template by erasing on it, or I can insert a cover layer Either is good, by the way. Actually, maybe that's tedious. I'm going to take that out. It's a little bit old school, so I'm not going to do that. Take this and make a copy of it. That's your safety. Except for I didn't Control Shift. So Control C and then Control Shift V. And that'll drop it right on top of the other one. Turn that one off. Great. So now all I need is the portion of the template that works with the drawing I'm working on right now. So drag a lasso type selection tool. Select the portions of this template that are important to me. Control Shift I to invert selection. You see the marching ants all the way around the outside. And then Control X to cut. Okay, so that minimizes the amount of template I have to work with or deal with. And now I'm going to use my eraser to clean this up. Now, depending on who your client is, you may not have to clean it up. It may be fine left the way it was. That's your call. You know your client. And in Rhino modeling, some of these may actually be useful lines to have further down the road. Careful there, because this blue line is actually merged into the shank there. Center line won't hurt anybody. That won't hurt anybody. Now, if I'm going to do big areas, it makes sense to use a bigger brush. Because the only thing I need here, actually I would like to keep the ring bore. That ring bore is actually very helpful to clients to understand that this is sitting on the finger. Okay, that's certainly sufficient, and if I wanted to, I can lift that out a little bit. Okay, up here, really the only thing that's useful to me up here is the bezel in the stone. So I can erase my little heart out up here. That's fine, whatever I want to do. It is interesting to note that I overshot how far that needs to go out. So that's fine. So how much you want to clean this up is up to you. But that is certainly workable. The only reason I've left those little dots on the outside is that they're going to cause me trouble. This flattened top view should be cut off roughly there. There. And now I can erase the little dots. Okay, so I've been fussier with it than I need to be. But that is a credible little design. I would now at this point in the thing, I would definitely get rid of the center line that's trailing all the way down here, and that's it. It gives you a pretty nice, succinct looking design. Okay, so that's it for this video, and I'll more to follow. Thanks.